to a show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Mats Podcast. And this week for the podcast, I'm going to welcome back. I've been doing a lot of welcome backs lately, but I like this welcome back because we just talked not too long ago, and he had some big, exciting stuff going on shortly thereafter. So it's going to be fun to have our good friend George Ivanoff back on the podcast. And George actually went on an adventure. So having him back, we want to hear about that adventure. So welcome him back to the podcast, George. How you feeling, my friend? What's
going
on?
It's good. It's good to be here. You know, I missed you guys, but you've been busy. I've been seeing your posts. You've had a lot of good content. So happy to be here and share my shenanigans with you.
Well, that's what we're here for, man. Like, I was living vicariously through you. As I would look at the posts and the stories, I was like, okay, all right, we're rocking. We're having a good time. And my wife's like, we're like, who's we? Like, you're sitting here at home. Like details, lady. So let's just jump right into it. You went out to attend CJI. How was that?
Yeah, that was great. I think I owe you some backstory though, Jake. So how this all went down, because it's just a really, really cool story about how I ended up in Las Vegas with VIP tickets to CJI, and then in the pit, real near the pit at ADCC, just surrounded by legends. It was just crazy, nuts. Just it all happened really, really quickly. So as you know, I'm really involved with Tap Cancer Out, and I do a lot of volunteer work with them and competing and raising awareness and all that kind of stuff. So this was just when CJI was announced that it was going to be a thing, and there was a lot of excitement, and Craig Jones was all over the internet about, oh, we're going to do this thing and we're going to pay the athletes right. And I think just as another finger in the eye of ADCC says, and we're giving away all the money to charity, right? We're gonna do this as a nonprofit. We're not keeping any profits. We're gonna give what we raise to charity. And I heard that announcement, and then he says, we're not sure who yet, but we know we're gonna give the money to nonprofit through the Fair Fight Foundation, which is a foundation that Craig and Seth Delisle and some others put together to sort of do good within the BJJ community. So I heard this announcement, and I was at that point just on my phone texting with another Tap Cancer Out guy, another sort of volunteer fundraiser, et cetera. And I'm like, oh man, did you hear that? About Craig Jones wanting to give money to charity through CJI. And he's like, oh no, I hadn't heard that. Holy crap, does John know? And John is the executive director of Tap Cancer Out. And we're talking to like, oh, I don't know if he knows. So my buddy texts him and just a group text and says, hey, did you know about this? And John wasn't aware. And then just all of a sudden, he got his business or the development director or his relationship manager, I forget what the title is. And he got talking to CJI, and it just hit all of a sudden. I mean, before you know it, they're having meetings in person with B Team and with Seth and all of them. And then I find out, oh, this is going to be a thing. And I had to keep my mouth shut. I was so excited, Jake, because, I found out a little while before it was official, but, finally, it happened. And I was fortunate enough to tag along as a guest of Tap Cancer Out. I mean, I had to buy my own plane tickets and my own hotel room and all that kind of stuff, which was, small price to pay. But yeah, I ended up in Vegas. And then since I was already going to be there, I figured, hey, why not go to ADCC as well, right? So I bought a ticket to ADCC, and then, that's where stuff started.
Yeah, that's it. It's crazy that these two events, I mean, obviously it's by design that, this was head to head, but I remember when the initial, kind of whisperings start going around about it. And I'm relatively active on social media. I post a lot, but I don't, I'm not involved in a lot of the discussion. So as I'm seeing this stuff going on, I was like, Craig Jones Invitational, and I thought it was a joke at first because, Craig Jones, he's a prankster. He's always got, hilarious content and just, having a lot of fun. So I was like, oh, this got to be some sort of prank or joke. And then as you start seeing like legitimate names popping up, talking about they're going to be competing at the Craig Jones Invitational, you start thinking, it's like, wow, he's got a lot of people in on this prank with him. And then it turned out that, like, oh no, this is legit. And then it's like, oh, they're going head to head with, ADCC. And then it was just, bonkers. And then the stuff that I started seeing on the internet, because one of the things that I think about this whole scenario, both events taking place, whether it's on the same weekend or any other weekend, I think is a win for jiu-jitsu, period. But a lot of folks want to make it this, which one's better. One's better than the other. I don't want to have any association with one if I'm going to have association with the other type deal. And it's like, dude, it's jiu-jitsu. We're here for jiu-jitsu. We love jiu-jitsu. This is a win for jiu-jitsu. ADCC is ADCC. That is always going to be the case. It's an amazing event, great rule set. And CJI, from what I was seeing, watching it on YouTube, it looked awesome. It just looked so much fun. Like the matches were amazing. And the atmosphere, just, you could feel it through the screen. Like, this is amazing. So for you being there, I can only imagine like what that was like.
Yeah, it was wild. We're definitely going to talk about that because it was electric. But let's unpack everything that happened, right? Because this whole thing, I mean, when Craig and them and that team started just dripping out just announcements. Oh, the Ruotolos are coming to CJI, Max Jimenez, and so on and so forth, and Nicky Rod and Adam Bradley and Kyle Bain and Victor Hugo. That was a big announcement. I mean, all of these, Felipe Andrew. I mean, you had, current champions that were dropping out of ADCC to compete at CJI, and $1 million will do that, right? So, so I think it was really cool what Craig and his team did for, to raise jiu-jitsu to a place where it's consumable by mass audiences, right? Not just for BJJ nerds. And then also to take care of the athletes to show, hey, we really can pay these athletes like the professionals that they are. I love the whole, I'm going to pay you guys $10,001 just to show up when, it's 10 grand to win the division, a male division at ADCC. That was a very loud statement. And, to your point about, oh, this is great for jiu-jitsu as a community. I agree. I 100% agree. And, there were even conversations. I was sitting in the stands at ADCC, and I mean, there were legends everywhere. I had, all sorts of people all over the place. Bernardo Faria was there. Buchecha was there, a few other feet this way. And then people, it was just buzzing. There was a lot of people talking, right? And I overheard a conversation where someone on the other side of the fence was saying, oh, this whole CJI thing is not good for jiu-jitsu. We're being robbed of a bunch of matches. Imagine we had all of those guys at CJI and they were here and, we'd be missing out. We're missing out because of that. But, I don't know, man. I think, you have to give and take, right? And I think, if you're going to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. And yeah, maybe we missed out on a couple of matches. Think about, Andrew Tackett in the bracket at ADCC, what kind of mayhem he could have caused. But I think it was a step in the right direction. I think what we're getting out of there with, the pit or the alley, as they called it, with the slanted walls, that's got to be the standard moving forward. I don't see how you would run another jiu-jitsu or submission grappling event for that matter without having those walls, just the pace that you're able to manage. And then a bunch of other things. I think the other big takeaway for me was the scoring, right? I think something that tends to lose people is the scoring model of like IBJJF or ADCC jiu-jitsu. because you look at the points and then decisions. I think people are used to judges scoring, right? Like a 10-9 round, 10-8 round. People understand that. And I think it's more relatable. Like, oh, to me, it looked like, you know, this person dominated that round. So 10-9, or they got a knockdown or submit. They had dominance the whole round, 10-8, right? I think more people are going to be able to resonate with that than saying, oh, that was a 7-0 round because, you know, he passed the guard and he moved to mount, and then, you know, so on and so forth. They're just, if we're looking to grow the sport, I think we've got to make it easier to understand. And then I think just the overall excitement that and the pacing was just a lot different at CJI because no resets, right? With the walls, it gives you less resets. You know, if you don't have to deal with people rolling off the stage and then, okay, well, your arm is here and your leg is here, and then, you know, your eye is facing that way, and, you know, we got to take a picture of it and then put you perfect in the middle. So there was a lot, you know, all that to say, like, I think it was the next evolution, you know, and it was just a shotgun of an evolution. It was wild.
Yeah, I think from what I understand, Craig Jones was on Joe Rogan. I think he was saying they would like to do this every year. I think that would be cool. I mean, even if they can't do it every year, you know, even if it's every couple years, I still
Right.
think it's a big win because, you know, what you take from this as well is, you know, other events that pop up, you know, smaller events that, you know, that start off that could grow to something. I mean, my friend Fredo, he has Arte Suave Elite out in California, and that's been running for I want to say 2, maybe 3 years now. You know, so you see something like that, and they have their rules set, and it's great. But you know, you get something else that might come up after them that might now adopt the CJI set now, or kind of combine a little bit with CJI and some ADCC, or you know, you get some growth here as you see stuff like this, because it's one thing to see jiu-jitsu kind of grow as it's been growing over the years, and the popularity is, you know, just through the roof right now, and it's kind of been on the same plane though, and that, you know, it's still growing, but it was still very just like, all right, here we are, this is the standard, and that's all we, you know, we're gonna have. And then along comes Craig Jones, and now he's kind of changed a little bit more, and it's like, okay, now we got something new. I mean, we saw something similar with Eddie Bravo with EBI. You know, you go with you know, their overtime rules, and you know, it's just, you know, the game is always evolving, and this, like you said, it's just the next step in that evolution. And I'm excited to see, you know, if they do this again next year, you know, what improvements, you know, they might find that they could make. And, you know, if not, you know, just competitors, other competitors that might jump, you know, over there and say, hey, I want to jump in here and see what I can do. Because again, you know, you throw $1 million out there, that's gonna, you know, get some attention. But also, again, the atmosphere just seems so laid back, so fun. Like, jiu-jitsu in general is laid back, but this atmosphere felt like laid back and fun. Like you were
It was a
free
party.
to goof. Yeah.
It was a party. Let me just put it that way, right? So, you know, I was fortunate enough to have passes for. So it was in the what is it, the University of Nevada, UNLV, right? They're the Thomas and Mack Center. So it's like a basketball arena, right? So you've got your stands, and then you go down onto the floor section. So they had the floor section built out, and they had essentially like 3 other like raised platform stands, and then you could even sit right there, right up on the mat. And it was just one. It was obviously, you know, it was just one ring as opposed to the 3 for ADCC. But it just felt much more intimate, right? It felt like, to me, it felt like the crowd was part of the event. The other thing that I noticed is at ADCC, when the matches are going and there's 3 matches going at once, they've got music blaring and the bass is just boom, 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 boom. With the one match at a time. And I think, you know, in terms of scalability, they're probably not going to be able to keep one match, but maybe go to 2 matches or something if they want to grow the divisions and do some more weight classes. But just having, you know, not having the music and having the focus on one match and just the crowd really into it, it just felt like you were part of it. right? Rather than spectating it, like you were there, you were part of the process. So it felt much more connected. The matches felt more connected to the crowd. There was people saying funny shit, and Andrew Tackett's there like brushing his hair and stuff, and people are yelling at him, and he's responding. And you got Luke Rockhold tapping into Mighty Mouse. I mean, it was crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point there that you bring up about just kind of the single match. Having that focus, because even just here at home watching ADCC, you got the different mats, so you can click in to which one on flow, but there's always that, I want to say, like in between time, the intermission time, lag time, stuff like that. And it's like, okay, where am I going? What am I looking at? All right, who's up? Like, who's where? It's like you got the singular form right here. Just this is the match that's up next. I know it's coming. Our focus is here. And, that I think that's huge too, where it's like you get to focus on one thing. I mean, you could have two, with the, 3 mats going, you might have 2 really good matches going on. And it's like, oh shit, where do I focus? And again, that's great for jiu-jitsu, having those matches, because you can go back and check it out later. But if you're live at the event, or again, if you're watching it here at home on TV, you're bouncing now. You're like, oh shit, I want to see this, but I want to see that. I mean, hell, I was watching UFC 305 and CJI. My neighbors are over watching the UFC, and I'm on my my iPad watching CJI. Like, oh shit, like this. Oh my god. Like,
yeah, at one point, right? You could have been watching all 3 at the same time, almost, the UFC and CJI and ADCC. I think that Craig and Seth and them, that whole team that put it together, they did such a good job. Like, they really hit the sweet spot. I think, can they grow out some divisions? Sure. Would there be a trade-off? Sure. I mean, they've got, the sky's the limit for those guys. I think that they can, maybe grow it out to see some like regional qualifiers and stuff. I think the 16 individual bracket, if they want to add, female divisions, that kind of thing, they've got lots of options. But I think they caught lightning in a bottle with the format. I think adding another mat would probably take a little something away from it, but it would also add something to it too in terms of scale, right? So I'm not sure. I'm undecided. I thought about that, the week after, the last week after coming back. I'm like, would it have been as good as electric if there was a second mat? The third, I think, would have been too much, but a second mat in there and 2 matches going on. And it's just, it takes away, you got the whole crowd, dividing their attention, between 2 places. It's just, it's not as special. And there were so many little special moments within that event that I think there would have been some things lost had, the entirety of the crowd not been, part of it. I mean, I missed one. So there was a part where, was it Luke Rockhold and Pat Downey slid in the sides, and they sort of butt scooted to each other. Did you see that?
Yes.
When they entered, and Luke was very vocal about his disdain for butt scooters. We could talk about that in a little bit. I've got a bit of an opinion myself, but they both did it as sort of just like a troll to like, okay, we're just going to butt scoot from the edge of the mats in the middle. And I missed it when it first happened. I saw Luke slide in, but I didn't see Pat Downey. And then I saw it after on the rewatch that it happened. But there was a bunch of little, things like that just made it a really cool thing to behold.
Yeah, I caught that. I actually saw that on through Instagram. Actually, I didn't even see that live. And like at first when I saw, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And it was like, "Oh, okay, I get it now. I got to remember where I am. All right, now I get it." But I think with the one mat, especially with this being the first event, just kind of filling it out. I think that does well. I think, as they move forward, like you said, maybe expand a little bit, maybe even, if they had like, some early matches, early on, like prelims, if you will, and have 2 going at once, just kind of, warm the crowd up. And then once it's go time, have that singular, match going on that everyone focuses on. and really, even that kind of is used to test the waters a little bit. But
Mhm.
I do like, again, the big thing being the focal point on just one match and all your attention is there. And, you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. It's like,
That's a big one.
yeah, like at, I mean, I always complain about there being too much content in the world right now when it comes
Mhm.
to music, movies, television, whatever it may be, sports, even. But when it comes to jujitsu, I'm right now of the mindset like, hey, there's not enough. Like, give me more of
Yeah.
this, especially that weekend.
Right. And there's not enough mainstream content, right? I mean, there's just a lot of little fringe stuff. I think we're at the sort of precipice right now. I think or I should say the jumping off point, where we our sport gets some trajectory. I can see it happening. Craig has catapulted it in many ways. You got guys like Gordon Ryan and those guys who are really, becoming very well known to the sport, and then all of the
Mm-hmm.
crazy billionaires and stuff that are getting involved and whatnot. But these are the kinds of things I think, it's just a visionary thing what they did with CJI to think about, the non-jiu-jitsu person watching it. What's it going to take to make them interested? And I think they're going to have to find that balance, right? Because, Craig is a showman, and the stuff that he did with Gabby was fucking hilarious,
Yeah.
but how much of that, can you have before things start getting, a little bit circus like, right? I loved it. I thought it was great, for the record. And he got out there and ripped his pants, the whole 9 yards was just hilarious. But it was just absurd to the level of just being perfect. But, that's going to fade a little bit, right? And, that momentum is going to wane. And eventually, they're going to have to find that balance to where, okay, well, this is something to be taken seriously. This isn't a one-time thing. And, they're going to have sponsors to deal with and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm interested to see how they deal. I totally believe in those guys. Ton of smart
Mm-hmm.
people involved behind the scenes. They have the guys from Smooth Comp there. I mean, all the big brains were in the room. So really interested to see what happens next.
Yeah, for sure. I think they, with what they had going on, I think there's a good balance because, again, when you look at the actual matches that were going on, there's some good action going on, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of legit jiu-jitsu going on. And then again, you have the spectacle, the silliness going on the side. So I feel like there's a fair balance where it's like, look, when you actually focus in on the jiu-jitsu, it can be taken serious.
Yeah.
And then, the sideshow of it all, Craig being silly and just having a good time, that's just a little bit of extra flavor,
Yeah.
because, we've all been at tournaments, we're sitting at a tournament for hours, you get kind of run down. So,
Yeah.
kind of throwing a little bit of that comic relief, something to
Yeah.
break it up a little bit,
Yeah.
they balanced it just right, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And you want to talk about being in a tournament all day and feeling run down. That's what ADCC felt like to me. Now, I don't know if that was because, I hadn't slept the night before. I can tell you that story a little later. I literally went from Saturday night to the after party at XS and then back to the hotel, shower to T-Mobile Arena at 10 in the morning for ADCC. But it felt like it dragged. I mean, I was tired, but in general, it just felt like it dragged. There was there were a couple good matches, don't get me wrong. There was some good stuff, and I don't want to take away anything from, what Kane Duarte accomplished and Giancarlo Bodoni and Mika Galvao winning the Super Grand Slam. Like, come on, that's historic, right? What Mika did, second person to ever do that. But just in terms of pure entertainment value, like it was night and day, no comparison, mass appeal. Like I couldn't take my neighbor and put him in ADCC and expect him to just enjoy it and sit there for the whole, he'd be bored out of his mind. Anyway, but I can take pretty much anyone and have taken them and put them in CJI and they would have had a good time, whether it was because of just the way that the crowd was, the sideshow, like you said, or just how electric, the majority of those matches were. And what's wild? I think the rule set and the whole slanted walls and the setup and all that just made for really exciting matches because, The over 80 kilogram bracket, there was only 6 submissions, and 4 of them were Nicky Rod's on his that guy's run was historic. Like, we got to talk about that at some point.
Oh yeah.
But only 6 submissions, and I think, was it I don't know how many matches, a bunch of matches, 15 or something like that. I don't know, yeah. So there was a lot of decisions, things that went to the cards, and it was still. I mean, you look at the knockdown, drag out, Andrew Tackett and Cade, best grappling match of all time, in my opinion. The crowd chanting one more round at the end of it. I mean, they couldn't have done that at ADCC. They would have been off the mat 6 times.
Yeah, I mean, again, there is something to be said about just that setup. I mean, it kept the pace, active. There's no stoppages as far as like, oh, we got to reset. That's always a thing that gets me with a reset, because all right, we were on the mat, and you got to keep your same position. But the problem now is, all right, we're going to reset and we got to start. Now there's kind of that advantage of knowing, well, I'm here. Now it gives me a bit of a breather and a reset to kind of better leverage myself, whereas here, you don't have that. It's like the action just keeps going. It keeps going. Like, just keep it moving. And, we're not resetting this anywhere. You're going to land where you land, but you're always going to be within. So, I think that's, again, just got to be the future. I can see more events popping up doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, when you mentioned, you couldn't take your neighbor to ADCC just because, it's very much a jiu-jitsu tournament format. You feel like you're there all day. You feel kind of run down, and, perhaps, some exhaustion for you, probably existed there. But that is kind of a feel, though, with these types of events. My neighbor who was over here watching UFC 305 with us, he had actually mentioned when I brought up CJI, he doesn't follow jiu-jitsu, but he knew about, the Craig Jones, Gabby Garcia match. He was like, wait, is that really going to happen? I was like, is it? It did. Like, here, let me show you. So, I mean, that's already something there in itself, where it's like, it's touching folks that aren't even in the jiu-jitsu community, whereas like anytime I bring up ADCC to anyone, I have to explain that. I have to explain, okay, so Abu Dhabi Combat Club, and here it is, like, this is the layout, and these are the the brackets. They're like, okay, so jiu-jitsu, yeah, absolutely, it's jiu-jitsu. It's a good, it's a good competition, it's a good tournament. It's huge. It's our Olympics. But with CJI, explain that to folks. It's like, okay, here's the layout. This is what you're going to be seeing, and it's in this bowl, if you will. Right. They're like, oh, okay, that looks, that's already got my wife's attention. She was like, oh, well, this looks interesting. So, and I don't want to sound like I'm crapping on ADCC by any means. There's this excitement because there's this new thing. We're like kids. Like, here's the new toy. Like, let's look at this and take it out the package. But like I said, it's a win for everyone, in terms of the grappling arts, because, we got a new game in town that at the very least gives us some other options of looking at, some higher level competition. And the big thing too is like pay, the athlete pay, because, folks, when CJI was brought up, and then it was really announced like what the pay and stuff was going to be, I heard a lot of folks complain about that, because it was like, well, ADCC has to, pay for this, and that. They can't just go around throwing money out there. And it's like, I mean, I get that from, a business perspective, but you have to also think too, it's like, you got folks coming out doing your tournament, doing your competition, you're selling tickets, you're doing all this crazy stuff, getting these big arenas.
Sponsors also. Let's talk on that. Let's pull on that thread, right? Because I think I can't say enough how smart these guys are. Like, every step. Okay, I'm a business strategist. I see this stuff, and I can sort of read between the lines on what these guys are doing, and it is just absolutely genius. Every little part of it, the whole thing with Gabby and the kiss, and then Mackenzie Dern and Fionn Davies after Mackenzie's coming off of creating all that buzz with the weigh-in, and just there's just so much to it, right? I think here's what I think. I think this whole play is a two-part thing. Okay, I think it's not done yet. In order to make this work, okay, first Craig and co, Seth and all them had to show it was possible. Okay, number one, they've got to say, all right, we have to do it. We have to bring the best in the world to it. We've got to ensure that, you know, this isn't just some sideshow that's got a bunch of, you know, unknown grapplers. Like, we need the best here. And in order to do that, we need the money. So they went and they got the money. They got the best grapplers in the world, except for some of the folks that, you know, wanted to accomplish some things at ADCC for historical purposes. Sure, I get that. Now they do that. Now the next thing they have to prove is that it's sustainable, right? It's one thing to go out and, you know, get some private capital raised up in order to do this. You know, there's I don't have a clue who put up the funds for this, but, you know, I can think of many who would do it just for shits and grins, right? To say, okay, I kind of want to see how this would play out. You know, here's $3 million, you know, what I would spend a weekend in Vegas for some of these guys. And they did it. So now the first step was to show that, okay, this is possible. We can do it. We can bring the talent. We can organize. We can do it logistically, which they did beautifully. You know, I saw somewhere on some posts, they were talking about it, and I put a post on there. Oh, when I was there, I didn't see one hiccup, one production hiccup. And for it to be the very first, you know, the inaugural event, and not have a bunch of production issues, are there things they could have tightened up, you know, logistically? Sure. But in the grand scheme of things, it went off smoothly. I heard there was maybe one little hiccup with the microphone thing, and they fixed it in 10 seconds. Like, now we're picking nits, right? We're fly spec and stuff. But yeah, step one, you know, make sure that it can work. And then step two, show the sustainability. And now they've got everything they need for it, right? They've got the numbers to be able to go to the sponsors and say, you know, we had millions and millions of views. We had, you know, concurrent viewers into the hundreds of thousands. We had, you know, tens of millions of social media impressions. And I love it. I love it. You know, so many doubters, and I just keep seeing it over and over. You know, yesterday's price is not today's price. I think it's going to be hugely successful. So I just love seeing how it all sort of played out in real time.
Yeah, that's, you know, again, one of those things that you get excited about it, because it's like just the possibilities moving forward. Because, you know, Craig, you know, he said, hey, we like to do this every year if possible. You know, I'm not sure, you know, what goes into that as far as, you know, who put up the money beforehand, and if, you know, they want to continue on, you know, behind the scenes helping out, or if this was like kind of all right, you know, let's just go ahead and knock it out, see if we can do it. And then, you know, that person behind the scenes, you know, again, if they see all this going on, they're like, dude, I really like that. That was great. You know, you prove your point, run it back, because, you know, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And what about, you know, just talk about for a minute, just the fact that they you know, did it for a good cause, you know, the Fair Fight Foundation and funding Tap Cancer Out, and then all of the fighters, you know, having their own little causes. I think it's a beautiful thing, right? It's awesome. I think it's phenomenal that they were able to do that. And, you know, I think it was really cool how Tap Cancer Out resonated, you know, with the B Team crew, with Seth. And do you know the story? Did you see the videos about him and Mick Sheff, you know, the guy who raised him and that kind of thing? Lost him to a fight with cancer in 2021. It was very, you know, really heartwarming to hear.
I wasn't fully familiar with it.
Yeah, so Seth lost a father figure to him, a guy by the name of Mick Sheff, who was a larger than life kind of personality, you know, very well known in sort of the outdoor space, and he lost him to cancer. I think it was in 2021. So I think that's why things played out so quickly. I mean, everybody's got a cancer story, right? And I think that's what makes Tap Cancer Out, you know, so well positioned to do so much good, is because of that. And then just the fact that, you know, the amount of impact in the jiu-jitsu community, it's just such a perfect pairing. But, you Gabby Garcia did her own thing with, I think, some children's schools in Brazil, and it was just awesome. Such a great element to see so many great causes being supported by this event.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that gets enough praise as well and recognition.
Right.
Of course, we're excited about the spectacle of it all, and the atmosphere and the fun and the matches that were put on. But again, behind the scenes, what's it all going to? When you're raising money and giving to nonprofits, I think that's huge because there's so much to be said about companies and just organizations and setups where it's like, look, you want to take in all this money. There's been tons of over the years, social media call outs about specific charities that the CEO of the charity is making millions, and if you donate a dollar, only a dime goes to the actual charity, stuff like that. So you get a little wary, when you hear about well, I don't want to donate to this, I don't want to donate to that. And charities and nonprofits and stuff like that they start getting a bad look. They start getting a bad name. So people start kind of veering away. So for, this group to come in and say, look, we're going to, take all our funds. We're going to pay the athletes. We're going to, put into, these nonprofits and, everything. And, and hold up to it as well. That's the big thing. Is like, again, you could have people say they're going to do this, and then when it's all time to go, it's like maybe not as much. We got to cover this charge and this charge and that charge. Don't forget about my pocket. So just giving back, I think is huge. So
I agree.
Big shout outs to them for that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you make a good point, right? Let's not overlook that in terms of fiduciary responsibility and the impact that dollars are making. One of the many reasons why I am, so gung ho and back Tap Cancer Out so much is because of their level of fiduciary responsibility. The funds that they raise go to good places. I mean, they're very public. They've got their their annual filings are available on the website. They've only got like 2 or 3 paid employees, and the amount of stuff that they do with just 2 employees is just astounding. Running all these tournaments around the country, I'm proud to say, working with them, that they do a really good job with the money that they raise, and they're super responsible with it. And anyone that has any questions about it, I would urge you to definitely go to the website on tapcancerout.org and take a look at the financial reports. Everything's there. It's phenomenal.
I think that's a big thing too, is like when you put everything out front so people can see it. You open your books, because when people got questions, people want to, doubt you. It's like, well, look, here it is. My heart's open. Yep. Take a look. I think also people, like yourself, raising funds, and then, the folks that are just helping out, like volunteering and just doing what you can to help, goes a long way too, because, when you're, when you're, nonprofit charity, you're bringing stuff in. It's like when you're trying to help it's got to be from the heart, like, and that even goes for like certain jobs. Like I used to be a preschool teacher, and trust me, it wasn't because I was getting paid a bunch of money.
Yeah, for sure.
It was from the heart. But when you do things like that, there's something to be said about your character as well. Because when people are out there volunteering their time on the weekend, it's like, yeah, sure, you could be taking a nap, watching sports, doing yard work. You want to go give back. You want to make sure that you're helping the community. And your help, has a big impact on, a single individual that, they may not know is you, but their life has been changed because of that. And that's so big. So, this all in itself, I think is beautiful and amazing. As they move forward, like I said, I hope they continue to do this and just, keep giving.
Agreed. So let's talk about some jiu-jitsu, man. What did you think about the matches, because I think both nights were just action packed and amazing. I mean, Nicky Rod just ran through his bracket. There was, nobody stopping that guy. He was a freight train. I've never seen anybody so locked in my life. But what were your thoughts? What were some of your favorite matches?
So for me, Fiona McKenzie is like it was just action. It was just like go go go, and then the end with a finish. It was like, oh my god, like all this plus a finish, like I wasn't asking for much, but you gave me it all. I think as far as the matches go, people showed up. It wasn't like anyone was like half-assing it. I'm not saying, that happens in, other tournaments, but, it's like, and taking the money off the table, not even thinking about like, the money that's being paid. It's like, you get out there, the Rotolo brothers, they always show up. They always show up. And this was no different. It was almost at a point where like, as you're watching these matches and trying to like keep up, like, I compared to there's a UFC, not this, like I want to say 2023, the spring of 2023. It was like every single fight on that card was just so action packed. My heart was beating. That's how I felt watching matches, as I would like kind of flip back and forth and tune in. It was like you would think like, okay, because I wasn't watching like straight on. It was like, okay, I'm watching this, I'm watching this. But every time I came back, it was action packed. You think like, okay, maybe I didn't miss something. And like, I'm going to stumble into like a slow match. No, not at all. It's like every time I looked up, it's like, oh my goodness, this is an amazing display of jiu-jitsu. Nicky Rod, like, I can't say enough about that dude. It's like just watching his run, just watching his growth, like in the game over, the last, year and a half, just over the years period. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. It's like, it's like you're here, and it's not even like it's like there's no end in sight for this guy.
Yeah, he's a force to be reckoned with. Let me tell you. Something that really it didn't catch me by surprise, but I was kind of just taken aback by it, was the sheer size of some of these guys. Like Max Jimenez is as wide as a sheet of plywood. Okay, and Nicky Rod's not a small dude, but he handled it. And then Victor Hugo's a big dude too. And then Luke Kennard, heel hooks him in like a minute. Just the amount of just the quality of the jiu-jitsu on the mat, the technical proficiency that was displayed that night was phenomenal. I thought to myself before the event, I'm like, man, there's some big weight discrepancies with just these two brackets. And I'm like, this over 80 is, I think there was like 100-pound range of competitors. I think Max was at the top of that. I think Victor Hugo was probably on the bigger end. Joao Rocha, another just monster dude.
I would like to, think as they move forward is like, it's their own thing. So, it's a hopefully an annual thing. And I think that's just enough. You don't need to, do more, but, you start looking at different weight divisions. How do you spread that out? How do you spread that out and potentially, kind of tighten it up, I guess. So there's not, you get more matches out of it overall, but also too, almost to a point, kind of like, I don't want to say UFC or any kind of MMA organization where you have like a championship, like one, has Musumeshi and Daniel Kelly down there, Rotolos, all with championships down there, but they compete every so many months there. But even still, it's like, for this, having those divisions now, having a few different fighters within, a specific, weight range or division, and kind of growing it from there potentially. But, as it stands right now, it's like I'm still kind of in that, starry-eyed phase where I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
it was perfect. It was perfect. You can't change anything. Just keep it as it is. But again, you're wondering where your growth can come with the matches, with the
Mhm.
scoring, with the
Yeah.
judging stuff. And I like the open scoring.
Yeah.
As each round
Agreed.
went by, you saw
Yeah.
what the score was. I love
Agreed.
that because
Yeah.
when you're looking at anything else, you're just like, I think this person won that. I think that person. Well, we'll have to wait until the end, and then
I
we'll get
like
the
that
score.
too. Yeah, I like that too. In terms of divisions, I think they could maybe add one more. I'd be perfectly fine if they just kept it as it is too, to be honest with you, for the record. But I think, looking at the just sheer, I think, and what do I know? I'm just a guy, but I think it would be cool to see one more, maybe do like a 90 plus 70 to 90 and sub 70 or something like that. But to be honest with you, like the sub 80 bracket, while there was some weight discrepancy there, it was pretty well matched. And I think that was probably the more entertaining bracket of the two. The big guys, they had their moments, but I mean, like Inacio Santos was just like a boulder rolling downhill, just imposing his will on people until he ran into what's it called, Felipe Andrew in the semis. So it was more of a. I think that the over 80 bracket was just the Nicky Rod show. You had more in terms of entertainment value on the sub 80 with just everything go around. Oh, what did you think about Levi Jones Leary? I mean, was that a coming out party for him in terms of no gi and everything he was doing? Mr. Xanadu.
As far as like coming out part, it's like I think this was a good what's the word I'm looking for? Not platform. Yeah, I guess platform. Well,
Showcase. It was
showcase. There we go.
Yeah.
A good showcasing of skill in the right place to do it. You
Yeah.
have the right opportunity here, and you got to see it on full display. And you now made your mark.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean,
we see it.
his what he brought to the table, after all that work he did with Lachlan Giles, training with Dr. Lachlan. I don't know if you've seen all of the, because of the match between him and Cade, and all the kerfluffle about, did he get robbed? Did Cade really win? And you got the people who hate the guard play, and him just playing guard the whole night, and then the things that Luke Rockhold said. And I personally thought that that his guard play was just beautiful. It was, to me, the most beautiful technical jiu-jitsu, some of the most beautiful technical jiu-jitsu I've ever seen. Just the guy was sticky as hell. Him and O'Flanagan, both of them, just sticky as hell. Nobody could get past their guard, but especially Levi. I mean, what he was doing there, playing that lasso and just getting people into deep trouble. I mean, he hurt Ty in that match, in that first round. Like, he was dangerous.
Well, I think that's the thing though too. It's like you have Ty Rotolo there, and it's like we know him. That's our poster child right now. So it's like, of course, there's going to be the argument, of like, well, we're going to lean this way, but you can't neglect what you saw Levi doing. And for a lot of us, it's like, okay, here we are. You're standing toe to toe with this dude, and you're making him work. And I think again, that's just another coming out show for him here. To catch that on this scene on like for free for everybody to see. So it's like, I think those are always the good things too. It's like when you get a name that's like, okay, we know your name, but like we really want to like know what we might see little things here and there, but we want to really see it on full display, and you got to see it.
Yeah.
And now that it's here, it's like, okay, well, we weren't really expecting that.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. My buddy, my training partner Bo, called it. I had Roberto Jimenez beating Levi Jones Leary because I didn't know enough about him going into this. And Bo says to me, he's like, there's no way, because Roberto can't defend leg locks, and this guy's a leg lock master, and that's exactly what he did. He went in there and he heel hooked Roberto Jimenez in the first round, and it was done. And my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, it's wild.
Like, I wonder, too, with something like this, especially with someone like Levi coming out, it's like now that, well, not just him, like, a lot of the competitors here, if they end up coming back and doing another CJI, you know, are they coming back? You've made your name here, you've planted your flag. Do you come back and do it again here, or do you say, well, now that you see who I am, you hear my name, now let me move on to greener pastures? I mean, I don't even want to use that term, but it's like, let me go now, talk to one. They do jiu-jitsu over there, go to ADCC, and now, maybe they've got some personal goals that they want to set over there, because we, already, saw that happen. Like you said, we had competitors that stuck over there at ADCC because, they still had some goals they want to achieve. And then maybe next year we see them hop over CJI. I think the other day I was talking about, I kept saying CGI, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Dante? It's like, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, having these guys now, come over and test themselves over here. And,
could you imagine if Mika was in that sub 80 bracket?
And that's what I mean. Like, I'd love to see it.
Or Kanan Duarte in the over 80, him and Nicky Rod. I don't know. I don't know where that would go. Kanan is just on fire right now, but that would sure make things interesting. And I think that adds credence to some of the conversation that I overheard at ADCC was that, hey, we got robbed of those kinds of matches. But I think the trade-off was okay because of how many great matches we had at CJI. But I would love to see, Mika Galvao and Andrew Tackett, hammer it out. Or,
I think also there's something to be said too about, like, okay, let's say this happens again, in a couple of years, they go head to head again. And then down the line, as CJI continues to grow, why not just, let's, kind of do some kind of joint thing, like, because I think there's always this heavy thing on, like, competition, UFC and Pride. I mean, UFC and any of the other organizations that, were number two, to them. I mean, even go pro wrestling, WWE and WCW, NFL and whatever other league there is, but it's like, there are times where it's like, wait a minute, why don't we, work together? What, like, and I do think there is a thing to be said about competition, though. You do have to have that competition to push, because, like, taking it to pro wrestling, when WWE purchased WCW, wrestling before that, pro wrestling, it was fun. You had that competition, both shows trying to one up each other. Once one bought the other, they were like, oh, we can take our foot off the pedal now.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. You make an interesting point. I don't know that I could ever see ADCC and CJI working together. But I'll tell you what, though, I'm almost positive that the next time they probably won't be on the same weekend. I'd be surprised.
I'm sure.
I'd be surprised. I think they're going to schedule it differently. For one reason or another, I could see it happening. And if that's the case, then I think you're going to be much more apt to see some of the top competitors that stayed with ADCC maybe jump into the brackets with CJI if they don't have some sort of like non-compete agreements. I mean, speaking of which, how messed up was it that they didn't give Gabby her Hall of Fame induction, because she decided to support CJI? Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So Gabby Garcia was due to be inducted to the ADCC Hall of Fame, and she gave up her Hall of Fame induction to be at CJI and to compete in that exhibition match with Craig. So I don't know what's going to come of that. I don't know if they're never going to give it to her now out of spite or whatever. But I think she was so down with the cause that she said, whatever.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess in the moment, not saying I agree with it, but I guess I see it, in the moment. But I think in the long run of it, it's like, how long can you stay mad at somebody? How long can you be bitter over them? Saying, well, I'm going to go do this.
Pete Rose still hasn't gotten his, for for what he dealt with baseball. But
Yeah, I
hopefully she
mean,
gets hers, man. She earned it.
I agree. I agree. It's just like I'd like to see, some of those other athletes come over, but like you said, maybe down the line, the weekends probably won't be the same that they're going to be having their matches. I could see Craig Jones being Craig Jones and chasing the date. Like, hey, let's find out when they're going to have their date.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Get some insider info. Okay, well, we're going to schedule ours then, and then force an ADCC to say, well, shit, do we have to move or what do we do? But I can't. I don't think it'll get to that push of that big of a push there. But yeah, in the future, it would be more than likely. Like, look, let's just avoid all this. Because, like I said, it's a win for jiu-jitsu all across the board.
Really
I think
is.
it's a bigger win though if it's a different weekend as well,
Mm-hmm.
separated by one weekend and then the next weekend, or separated by 2 weeks or whatever it may be. I think it's an even bigger win
Or even a
because
season, you know.
yeah, you don't have to sit there and like you know if you want to be there live for the event, you don't have to toggle between the two. Number one, and then number two, watching them. You don't have to keep flipping back and forth. Get one weekend, you get some good action. Catch your breath, like, whew, that was good. All right.
Mhm.
The next weekend, get some more good action, and then now you're talking about it for however long. So,
Yeah, well, and the
uh,
competitors, right? Because I mean, they're to train and to be prepared to. I mean, to do that, it just obviously takes a significant toll on their
oh yeah.
bodies to be able to prepare for those. So they need enough time in between them.
Hmm.
I had an interesting conversation on the plane. It's funny enough, I sat next to the same guy on my flight into Vegas as on my flight out. The guy that owns a school in North Carolina. I won't say who he is. I don't know if he wants to be put on blast, but we had some good conversations. And he said, we talked about Gordon Ryan and how much of a thumb in the eye would have been if he would have competed at CJI, and he would have been like, hey, and gone and taken the money, and joined the over 80, and then just won and taken the money, and completely flipped off Craig Jones on there. But for whatever reason, he didn't. I heard after the fact. I think, as you probably heard as well, that he was having some serious health issues during his
Yeah.
training camp. So, but it would have been interesting. It would have made for an interesting storyline. But given that, there's just so much talent right now, and these guys have so much left to give. You got the Rotolos who are so young. Levi's looking great. Joseph Chen, and the Tommy Langaker and Owen Flan. All these guys they've got years ahead of them. So it'll be interesting if we can get them all under one roof on the CJI format rule set, because I think that's the key, having the slanted walls
Mhm.
and the rule set and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
It would be, just fascinating to see where this all goes. And, as we get younger competitors coming up, newer competitors
Mhm.
jumping into the game too, because jujitsu is just that. It's, you see these young guys coming up and, um,
Yeah, the young guys, man, for sure. What about the old guys this weekend, though, man? What about Wagner and Rafael Lovato and what they did going to the finals? 42,
we'll see.
43 years old?
And that's another thing too. It's like, they still got it, obviously, but, as you look, it's like, we're hoping, our young guys can become those old guys. I mean, like we just said,
Mm-hmm.
Gordon Ryan, with his health issues, it's like, what's to come of that in a few years. I mean, again, we got Nicky Rod, who, is just a force, and he, I can see him being around for a while, as long as, big guys tend to, in any sport, don't tend to make it very,
Right.
far,
Yeah,
as
the wear
far as
and
like
tear.
longevity. But these days, as far as health goes and everything,
Mm-hmm.
nutrition and just taking care of yourself, things look a little bit better. But those are the bigger guys. When we look at our smaller, guys as well, again, you're looking at your Rutulos specifically because they're so young.
Mm-hmm.
I can see them doing this for a very, very long time.
For
They
sure.
seem like they're the kind of guys that just, you know, they take good care of themselves, and they take it serious to a point where it's like they're not breaking their bodies down. And then you just look at the B team, and the athletes that they have over there. They're building up a good young crop of athletes. you know um so you can see, you getting some of the younger folks over there becoming the older lions, if you will. But to your point with, like, having our older athletes out there competing and still doing it, you know, it's beautiful, because that's the thing when you look at jiu-jitsu, and we joke about this all the time at our gym. It's like, we're the older fellas, like, what am I,
Yeah.
46, and I'm still doing it. We always say, I want to be doing this when I'm 70. I want to be doing this when I'm
Yeah.
80, stuff like that. And it is possible. And competing on that level, it's possible. I got two teammates in their mid 50s,
Yeah, for sure.
competing at high levels.
Yeah.
So, jiu-jitsu, just as an art, it's always going to be there. As a sport, it's only getting better. And this past weekend really did a big service to the sport, and kind of putting some eyes on it. I mean, I was just listening to Joe Rogan's Fight Companion. I think I actually just turned it off right at the point where someone asked, like, why isn't jiu-jitsu in the Olympics? And then they start making fun of breakdancing.
Breakdancing.
After
Yeah, exactly. It always goes to breakdancing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, when I heard about breakdancing, I actually got really pissed. I was like, but we can't get jiu-jitsu. But from what I've seen on social media, when I put that question up years ago, a lot of folks were like, we don't want to see jiu-jitsu in the Olympics, for one reason or the other. And then the question became, would it be gi? Would it be no gi? There are all these different debates on, what's what. But, I don't know that we need the Olympics to justify or
I don't think so either. I think we're past that. I think we're past that. I think we've got enough good venues right now in the sport. I think IBJJF is kind of like your Olympic style for traditional jiu-jitsu. ADCC gives you to an effect as well, with all of the regional qualifiers and whatnot. So I'm not hurt about it. I think we get enough in terms of that kind of competition, and now that it's growing with CJI, that whatever. Would it be nice? Yeah. I mean, it brings other things to it. I kind of like that USADA is not involved, because you get to see the peak athletic form, the peak human form. And a lot of people have gripes about, supplementation and that kind of thing. But hey, it's a part of life, and it's making for good competition. And, the science is good these days, so.
Yeah. I think that's, another, debate that gets kind of gray at times, because you do have people who don't like it. I personally don't care. I don't take anything just because it's like, it's just not my thing. Who knows what things have been put into my body over the years. Like, I don't know, I might still got some super soldier serum flowing through my system, which is, why I ain't getting no gray hairs yet. It's kind of weird. But it's like those who do, you use TRT, I have teammates who do, and they're always saying, Dante, you got to get this stuff, man. Like, nah, I'm all right. like I see they're doing great though. They're training at a high level. I'm like, nah, good for you guys. And the thing is, so what if something, like, whenever I hear people complain about it, it's like, I don't know. It's like, you're being a hater. It's like, okay, it's like, you don't like it. Okay, then, don't use it, but, for those who are using TRT, or, even, steroids, whatever it may be, so be it, go train harder. I mean, yeah, it sucks because it's like, if you go up against Gordon Ryan, he's huge and he's strong, but it's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. See, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I don't care. I think I love, for example, though, I love the Ruotolo's position on it, and Mikey Musumeci's position on it, where they're like, no, we're clean. We don't, that's it. No. And I appreciate that, and I love it, and I respect it. and I'm also, those other guys want to do it and see, what the limitations of their body, is supplemented, and it gives you some crazy gladiator type matches, then hey, I think that's cool too. I mean, it's
Yeah,
choice. So yeah, for sure. I live and let live kind of deal.
exactly. Like, if I go, and train against somebody who's, using anything extra, okay, as long as you're safe, as long as you're
Mhm.
not ripping heel hooks and ripping
Yeah,
kimuras and injuring anyone, I don't care. Like, just be cool on the mats and be safe and take care of your teammates, opponents,
for sure.
training partners, everyone. That's the key to it all. Is like, as long as you're cool about it, be cool. But if you come out there and you're taking, all types of stuff and you're out there hurting people, okay, now we got a problem. But do as you do. And like you said, we get some great matches on those higher levels, like the enhanced games, whenever they
Hmm.
decide to kick that off. I can't wait.
I can't wait for that too. That looks just absolutely crazy. I feel like we're slowly migrating into idiocracy, and I'm kind of okay with it on some levels. But it's going to be interesting, and we're already seeing it. With
Yeah.
the submission grappling, the enhanced games. It's just part and parcel, as they would say over the pond. It comes with the territory.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if you want to go do it, go do it. That's what I always say to people. It's like, you want to do it, that's cool in the gang to me. But if I'm not going to do it, and it kind of goes to the whole being in elementary and high, or middle school and high school and everything, talk about peer pressure. Well, they're going to peer pressure you into doing this and doing that. And look, I've never been peer pressured into anything. Like, nobody ever offered me drugs. Like, I had to go find my own drugs. And then when I did say one day I wanted some drugs, everybody got excited. It was like, oh my God, this guy wants some drugs. But never was there any peer pressure. And I think that way with, like, supplements now, in terms of like athletes, is like, I don't see anybody. I got a teammate saying, dude, you got to do this. But like, and say, no, I'm good. Nobody says, oh, you're a loser. No, you just say, okay, cool. You want to train? We move on with our lives. And I think that's just how it should be. And if again, you're like the Rutulo brothers, or Mikey Musumeci, and you don't, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Because I mean, they've proven, they can still perform at an extremely high level without,
Hmm.
but they're also on the smaller side.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're
Exactly.
going on that bigger side, you're
Yeah.
probably going to have to. And, there's nothing wrong with that too, because at this point, if everybody else is doing it, when in Rome, you
Yeah.
know,
For
you got to
sure.
match up.
Yeah. For sure.
Um, well, George, this has been awesome. I love to continue on. I got to wrap up here though on my end. Um, Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you for again sharing your experience, and also just making the time to do this, because I think that's a big thing. Is I would say anyone that comes on this podcast, you are committing your time, and I greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure the listeners do as well. So thank you for that.
My pleasure, Jake. Always happy to be here. Thank you for giving me the platform to plug Tap Cancer Out, especially. If you don't know about Tap Cancer Out, find out about Tap Cancer Out. Chances are, if you are a grappling fan, you saw them all over CJI this past weekend. Logos on the mats, commercials, all that kind of thing. Global Grappling Day is coming up December 14th. It's a great way to get involved if you're just a no-gi guy. The Tap Cancer Out tournaments are all gi only, but if you're a no gi player and you want to get involved and roll for a reason and fight for those in the fight of their lives, then please go to tapcancerout.org and look up Global Grappling Day. There's all sorts of things you can do. There's no rules. There's no structure around it. You can literally put down a mat in your garage and roll for an hour and raise money for the fight against cancer. Come to me and ask me questions. Feel free to reach out if you want to. But there's the good folks over at Tap Cancer Out are happy to engage with you and talk to you if you have a gym or a team, or you just want to know more about how you can participate in the fight.
Thank you for that. Now I will well hopefully we'll try to get you back on here before December 14th. Talk about that a little bit more as well. And just, talk general jiu-jitsu and life in general. So thank you for that. And I'll be sure to get your links and everything in the show notes so folks will know where to find you. And also connect them to Tap Kent's routes. I actually just did a repost from them. I want to say last week, like late last week. They, just messaged, thank you and everything for the repost. So it's always nice when like you do something like that and you think like that's a huge platform. So it's like, I'm not expecting anything, but like when you see the message, like, oh, they message, that's super cool. So shout out to them and thank you. As we wrap up here, I want to thank all the listeners here. As always, we love you guys. If you got any questions, concerns, criticisms, always feel free to reach out. You can find me at bjj.wiki on Instagram and Off the Mats Podcast also on Instagram. And I always joke about the email and I say, don't email me, but somebody actually did just email me the other day. They actually email Off the Mats and my So You Like Horror podcast email. And, the same exact email. It was like, hey, want to be a guest? I was like, oh, which one? Like they wanted to talk nutrition and jiu-jitsu. And I was like, yeah, you messaged my horror podcast, but not going to turn you away. So you can email that offthematch2020@gmail.com. If you do, I'll obviously see it, even though I get sketchy about emails just because scammers, Nigerian princes and stuff like that, they still out there trying to get that money. I want to give a big shout out to my crew over there at Nerd Rage Radio, though. Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil, all you guys, love you. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing podcasts. So I always want to thank those guys and make sure that, they know it. I care. Also want to give a shout out to my other podcast, So You Like Horror. It's about scary movies, in case you guys didn't know. And soon we're going to have George on there. We're going to be talking about 28 days later. So, and probably 28 weeks later. And, they got the third one coming up 28 years later. So, we're going to be getting into some zombie or infected conversations there. So go check that podcast out, though. You can find it on Instagram also. So You Like Horror, all the words separated by underscores. So go check it out. And last but not least, I want to give a big shout out here to our good friend here, George Ivanoff. Thank you, my friend, for making the time and being our guest. And as always, we love you guys. Thank you so much. You guys keep listening, and we're going to keep making these shows. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.